Samasta TV, where we interview people from all over the world that are experts at different crafts that all impact our health and take our life to the next level. So today we have John Kempf. John Kempf is actually the owner of K Fitness Pros, where he helps athletes take it from 9 to 10. He's the owner of a Kempf Fitness Professional. He also works with athletes. And the cool thing about him is that he really just helps people transform their complete lives using fitness as a tool. He's actually a published author in Amazon, actually hit #1 on weight loss. Congratulations about that. And #3 on weight training. So, John, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Andres. Doing great, man. Just got a little client work done this morning and ready to do this interview.
Right on, man. And so, John, you are the modern day monk. And so tell us about your backstory, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was brought up with youth athletics my whole life, played a lot of basketball, baseball, and football, and played a little semi-pro football, adult league in college. And then since then, I've picked up natural bodybuilding as a sport and yoga as my hobby. And I went to school for kinesiology, received my bachelor's in exercise science. So I've really been interested about the mind and the body and movement my whole life. And since then, I've really started to incorporate more of a holistic approach using nutrition and mindset strategies to not only improve the health and performance of the body, but overall happiness and well-being and holistic health in general. So that's kind of where I've sent my trajectory at this point.
Well, that's outstanding, man. And tell what got you into bodybuilding?
I always was an athlete, so I trained really high intensity in the gym and a lot of high impact sports like football and basketball. And it started to take a wear on my body, especially in college. And I wasn't integrating a lot of mobility training at the time. So I was taking advantage of a lot of ranges of motion that I didn't own, and my tissues were suffering from it. And just overall, the wear and tear from football started to catch up to me. And so I started shifting my focus from football to something that was a little less impactful on my body, a little bit more restorative. And that's when I started doing yoga. And once I started to heal some of my injuries from sports, a shoulder, ankle injury, a couple others, then I, still being really active in the weight room, wanted some form of extrinsic motivation, some competition. So I figured, why not? I already lift weights. I've got a big frame. I'll start working on bodybuilding. And, I've always been interested in the community of bodybuilding. And, there's two stories to everything. And there's definitely a lot of ego and competition-based thought. But the way I look at bodybuilding is a much more intrinsic, reflective sport where I can compete with myself every single day. And I am the only one responsible for the outcome that I seek. And so it really keeps me accountable and makes me practice what I preach, which is something that I'm really big on in my industry. There's a lot of people that put out information but don't actually practice it themselves. And so that's one of my biggest messages is don't walk behind me, walk beside me. I'm here in the trenches, battling my mind every single day too. The hour in the gym isn't that tough. It's the 23 hours outside of the gym where you got to watch what you eat, cook all your food, make sure that you're recovering properly and taking care of your body. So I use bodybuilding as kind of my way to help me continue to be competitive with myself and practice what I preach. So that way people can see from example.
That's awesome, man. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That's so cool. Lately, I've been getting into a little bit of bodybuilding, and I realized how cool it is because you can, you have to kind of imagine the way you want things and where do you want to build. And it's almost like putting an armor, but you have to build it specifically. And so that's kind of been such a cool progress to learn that, and how much it is in your mind and and everything gets put together. It's really cool. And you're so right about walking the talk. I think in our industry, in healthcare, especially, you know, a lot of our doctors, me, you know, I was going through a lot of hard times and horrible habits that hurt my health so much, man, and put me in really bad places, you know, really dark spaces. And so, but yeah, like walking the talk is like the best way to keep yourself accountable. And so, so that's great, man. And so, what is it that you want to accomplish?
Man, what a loaded question.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's such a double-edged sword because my biggest personal focus as of the last half decade or so has been self-realization and holistic growth in general, really focusing on my mind and my spiritual growth, since I've had a lot of foundation with the physical growth and learning how to eat healthy and take care of my body and exercise and all of that. Then starting to build on my habits and where my mind space is. And yoga has been one of the biggest tools that I've used to really help improve those areas where, what am I thinking about? What am I feeling? How does this relate to what makes me happy and fulfilled? And how does this contribute to me making a positive impact on the world and humanity in general? Which, that I guess I could say would be where, if I were to sum it up in a career kind of mission statement, is my goal is to improve people's health and happiness, improve their life quality in any way I can. And the major doorways that I use to help people is the health and fitness realm, where I'm focusing on mind, body, and spirit and personal development. Some people need you to bring them up. Some people need more of an anchor to bring them down. But finding out where that person could use my help to improve their life quality is my overall goal, with the kind of long-term plan of just raising awareness and bringing positivity to the world in any way that I can, whether it's through my career or just going to the grocery store and you know, being a good Samaritan, that kind of stuff. Any way that I can provide a positive impact and live with purpose and positivity, that's my main goal.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And when you set out to start um, doing these in bodybuilding and putting it all together, what was one of the I know you're very, like, you know, you don't really believe in problems, probably. You, like, you know, that they're all challenges and growing experiences from what I seen and read and everything with you. And so, and at the beginning, what was kind of one of the first learning experiences, or that some other people would cause like a hard time that you went through? What was one of those first ones?
Well, it's a really common one, and you know, you'll hear it a lot, but it was really true in my specific situation, was finances. And again, you create your own reality. Your thoughts, your behaviors, the environment that you associate with are going to, you know, have play in a way a lot of that comes to be. And I had a low income upbringing, very I wouldn't say difficult, but a challenging upbringing that didn't leave me with many resources. So I was on my own to make my own way. First generation college student, so I didn't know what I was getting into and kind of just winged it, you know. But finances were something that, as I got older, I started to realize were a bit of a limiting factor for me. And because of that, I grew into the person that I am. I learned how, I think it's Tony Robbins, he has a great quote: if you don't have resources, then acquire resourcefulness. You know, work on your resourcefulness. Find out those intangible qualities that you have or that you can build or progress upon that will allow you to attract or collect the resources that you need in some direct or indirect way from your environment. And for me, I've always had that kind of subjective, intangible association with my mind and with reality in general. I've always been much more interested in courage, honor, discipline, loyalty, respect, love, passion, those things that you don't need anything for. And that, I think, is a big driving factor of my success, because not only does it help me get through tough situations when the resources aren't available, but other people see that determination and that action that I put forth through my work. I'm very focused on being humble. I always think leaders lead from the back, in the sense that they are the first ones there, the last ones to leave. They're always making sure they're walking the walk. And it's not like in any way do I assume the responsibility of being a leader. I just assume the responsibility of personal obligation. And it's a blessing and an opportunity to be able to do the things that I do and work the way that I do, and if anything, it's in my mind kind of an ethical responsibility. But if I have the ability, then I am obligated to use it in some fashion. And I've been blessed with a great life, full of a lot of great experiences. And what better way to help project that positivity than by living it in my own actions? And that's why I got into the field that I'm in, is because I get that opportunity to make that change with people directly. And as opposed to going about it that mainstream kind of way or marketing kind of way, I've chosen to have a much more personal approach, where the investment that I put in is more important to me than the investment I get out, the money that I make from what I do, because I know the money will come. And so
Yeah.
that's why it's less of a challenge and more of just like you said, an opportunity for growth. It allows me to see where I can be better, so when the money does come in later, I already have a good foundation to be able to use it and sustain it more efficiently than I would if I didn't have those previous experiences in my life.
Yeah, man, that is so true. One of the things that you make me think of is that this relationship with money thing, that is such a big. I grew up also in a hard, resource poor per se,
Yeah.
and used to you mentioned Tony Robbins, and one of his books, the latest one that he published about money. Great, the last chapter is about how it's not about money.
Yeah.
How like wealth is really, um, that if you take Oprah or Elon Musk and you throw them in Africa, they'll build themselves up again, because it's not about what they've created. It's about the transformation. So it's awesome, man, that you're working on that. And so when you started going in that obstacle that you overcame, and the lesson from it, once you got going, what was one of the biggest epiphanies that you discovered, or during this process?
To me, it was really kind of what we touched on, is just walking the walk. Like I'm a dreamer. I was that kid that had a super creative imagination, and I still do. And so I dream really big, and I optimistically see a huge opportunity and a huge evolution of the behavior of humanity within this generation, within my generation. And on one hand, you've got all of this quote unquote bad stuff happening around the world. But at the same time, it's a very cathartic process that's allowing a lot of people worldwide to realize, hey, I don't like, or we don't like the way things are. And oh, okay, we can assume some responsibility for the correlation between our cause and the current effect. So if we want to create this change to make the world a better place, world peace, resource-based economy, whatever we're trying to do, there's plenty of things, the pollution issue, global warming, then it's on us. We have to do it ourselves, because there is no other, person or entity that's going to assume that responsibility. It really is us And like a little quote that I like is, to see the change, we have to be the change. And another one of my favorite quotes is, seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. And I believe that there is a very bright future. I believe we're on the cusp of a huge transformation worldwide. I think that we're going to live in the day and age where we see a lot of these progressive ideas come to light. And so I'm here living it now, and I might not be the smartest guy on the planet. That's definitely for sure. I'm very average in a lot of ways, but I've got a lot of heart, a lot of passion, and a dream. Ultimately, you know, there's so many great people in history that I admire because of their dedication to the long-term vision that they had in their mind. And I see my greatest success being my contribution to making the world live in more harmony by just providing the positivity, or, you know, teaching people the behaviors they need to make that conscious personal change that over the long term creates the more societal community change that we desire. So I just am really focused on keeping that dream alive, and realizing that if I want it to come true, it's on me. And the best way for me to do that is focus on self mastery. You know, I think it was Osho or maybe Rumi had a great quote. I'll probably butcher it, but he said, "I was young, so I desired to change the world. Then I grew wise and desired to change myself." You know, and it's the as above, so below, as within, so without. And that's where my biggest focus is if I can work on making myself better, it allows my ability to change the world in a positive way to increase, simply by working on those principles of you know, the intangible qualities that we were talking about: the love, the passion, the humility, the discipline. And that really is where I find my purpose, is by recreating that dream and just building on it over and over. I can't wait to see the changes that happen when I'm 50, 60, 70, 80 years
Yeah.
old. I want to be 120, man. I mean, we're living in, that's possible as long as we apply the information. So walk the walk every single day.
That's awesome, man. And isn't it such a big part of you know, in the wellness, in the healthcare, in personal development, in, you know, whatever it is that as a practitioner, like, you know, every level has a devil and it's never gonna end, you know, and you know, like, and so like every time is like an opportunity for growth. So then we can teach it, whatever
Yeah.
comes our ways, you know. And so that's awesome that you that's one of your that's one of your that your epiphanies, that is, you know, walking the talk, man. And so when you had this vision of creating this in the world, what was the plan that you had to do that?
Well, essentially, through my own personal experiences, my spiritual journey, I've come to realize that we're just a speck in the ocean of space and time. And so I walk this kind of this tightrope. On one side, you have the surrender to ego, the surrender to plans and expectations and outcome. Ultimately, you just say F it and you go with what you get. You know, you never know what's going to happen. And so roll with the circumstances and focus on state of being. That's another one of my favorite quotes is, it's circumstances don't matter, state of being matters. And the definition of responsibility is your ability to respond. So give up any kind of idealistic expectation or plan that you have, and realize that from your limited perception, your narrow amount of data and experiences and stimuli that you've received in your lifetime compared to the vastness of infinity of the entire universe, you're not going to be able to come up with the best plan, because you don't have access to the information and the ability to correlate all that information to allow you to come up with the best strategy. Like, I just don't know a lot of stuff, and because I don't know a lot of that stuff, it's holding me back from certain things in you know, all in perfect timing. But the point is don't try to expect that you would be able to understand or correlate all of those events, because you just don't have access to all that information. Just like you take a supercomputer and relate it to the universe, and then we're just like a little flash drive, you know, like all this information comes down. You can only fit so much on that little flash drive. So that's where I focus more on learning what other people throughout history have done to not get around that, but use that as part of your information. And that's where the self-realization comes in, the spiritual journey of these alchemists and spiritual teachers and people for thousands of years that have been practicing some of these ancient proverbs and applying this wisdom to allow themselves to intuitively receive or associate or understand or interpret some of this data that might not be on the flash drive. There's tons of concepts that are talked about it, you know, like the holographic universe or the Akashic records. It's referred to throughout time in a lot of different ways, the field, the quantum field. But essentially, there's just a compilation of data and energy out there that we are a part of, all the way down to our entire being. And so there's some ability there that we have that science just hasn't quite gotten to yet, to access or use that information, that data that is out there. And that's where practices like meditation, where it's an actual technology that's been talked about for a really long time, that allows you to somehow get in a better state of being, vibrationally, atomically, however you want to associate it or think about it. But there's a way for us to get better at connecting to that possible infinite amount of data. And so that's where it just comes from, letting go to the ego, letting go of the expectations, and just saying, hey, there's some sort of interconnected greater mechanism of function at play that I can't fully understand. So I'm not going to try to. And that's one thing where there's a kind of a scientific debate is like, well, we can't objectively touch it, grab it, reduce it down, and explain it thoroughly. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, we've struggled with that all throughout human history, of the Earth being the center of the galaxy, and then, oh wait, no, it's not. And you know, we keep making adjustments and finding out that we weren't right. And our understanding of the brain and of the universe is very, very small in the scope of what there is to be learned about it. So just letting go of that kind of overall control or plan. And it goes back to Buddha. One of his main rules was detachment. And you know, you'll see it translated in different ways throughout different cultures and religions, but don't be attached to the outcome. Enjoy the journey. It's not about the end destination. And then on the other side of the tightrope, you have to have that logic brain, systematic, sequential process of action oriented ideals. So that way you can actually consistently get those things done that maybe the super consciousness does give you. You get this great idea, but if you don't act upon it, if you don't use that information in an applicable way in your current circumstance, then nothing actually ever changes. There is no physical manifestation that occurs. So it's like that perfect juggling of like being open to receive any kind of data or information or feeling that my intuition brings to me, my emotional guidance system brings to me. That's good, that's bad, this feels right, this doesn't feel right. And then at the same time, reflecting on that data with a very empirical mind and trying to go through previous experiences and apply these principles. And it's as simple as using your own body as the scientific experiment. You have n equals 1 right here. And through the research that you do, the information that you gain, you can then integrate a plan to apply with yourself, and then observe the change afterward and reflect upon whether or not it was efficient for your life or applicable for the long term. Or in our case, as health practitioners, can we use this information to help other people? And so we're kind of our own test dummy before we go out there and use it. So before I give someone a workout, for example, I'll make sure that I do the research to find out that the movement is safe and efficient. I'll try it out myself and I go, okay, that's great. Now I'm comfortable assigning this variable to a client to manipulate whatever variable of change that we're trying to work with. So it's just the checks and balances of objective and subjective, creative and logical, you know, and pairing those together.
Hmm. That is so cool, man. I heard this thing says that, you know, when you don't get your dreams, you meet your destiny, or this other way to put it, that you don't get the dream gets you. You know, like,
Yeah,
eh,
yeah, totally.
and so
Because
how do
that's
you?
what we come up with. You know, that end goal is it's ultimately going to be better than anything I could ever think of, and that's the beauty of it. It's not knowing that and then getting it at that point in time and being like, "Wow, that is life." That's pretty cool.
That's great, man. And so you kind of just let it, like, yeah, is there any practical way that people can maybe, so you just like act quickly and then just take decisions and then change it as you go and try to formalize whatever is coming? Or how do you walk the line? How do you do it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of reflection for me. Like, yoga is one of my favorite ways to consistently check in with myself and like, am I living where I want to be living? Am I working where I want to be working? You know, and I weigh these things. And I call it with an open palm, where I don't. Oh, I really liked that, and now I don't want to let it go. Let it stay, but keep an open palm. If it goes, it goes. So when I find those things, that's the balance, and that's where just practice comes in of like, I really like my job. Well, do I like it too much to where if another job came along that was actually better in the long run, would I be able to make the understanding and the decision to let go of the previous job and take the one that I think might be worse, but actually is, like you said, actually the destiny that is the better choice. So, and you know, from the objective logical side of things with practical application, I write down a lot of goals. I journal, not daily, but I reflect in some way daily, whether it's through meditation, yoga, journaling, even a good conversation with a family member or a friend, where you can kind of think out loud, so you can build some reaffirmations or catch yourself where like, wait, actually, I don't know, and then you can change some variables along the way. But yeah, just having constant feedback in any way possible, I think, is the most efficient
Hmm.
form of growth, because you can constantly check in with yourself like a GPS. Meditation allows you to feel, you know, quiet your mind and find those individual experiences, memories, or possible, you know, thoughts that are either aligned or misaligned with your ultimate purpose and your emotional guidance system. So being able to, oh, that's I shouldn't do that behavior, it seems to be pulling me off this main course, which I've at this point in time kind of predetermined as where I want to walk my walk. So I'll journal, and it's funny because when I journal, it's often when I'm in more of a negative state of mind, like I'm like mad or sad about something, or like apathetic, and I like go to the journal. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? And then after writing it out for a couple pages, like, oh, A, I feel way better just by talking it out, walking it out, and B, now I see I can correlate some of those reasons, like, oh, well, I was doing that and I feel like crap, so I bet I was feeling like crap because of that, or whatever it is. Or you do something like, oh, I totally forgot. Like, I'll see this all the time. I go back through my writings and see habits that I used to practice that I've fallen off. I didn't inroad that behavior enough to make it stay as a long-term habit, but it felt really good, so I wrote about it. And then I'll go back and read and be like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that I was waking up and doing this right away in the morning, which I noticed increased my energy level over the long term, or whatever it is. So just having the ability to constantly give yourself feedback. I do the same thing with my clients when it comes to their workout. I'll write them an exercise plan. And every week, I was just going through a couple this morning with a couple of my clients, they'll send me their notes that they take in the margins about the exercises. I always tell them, provide some subjective feedback along with the objective feedback. How much weight you did for how many reps is awesome, but was it a 3 out of 10 difficulty or a 10 out of 10? Did you like the exercise? Did you not like the exercise? Just having a little bit of that feedback helps you establish more of a memory, more of an experience, more of an association in the brain. So you remember it better, but also it improves the adherence of future repetition of that behavior. So just having them give me more constant feedback also allows me to write a better program. You know, if I see that they're really progressing in one area, okay, well, let's make that more difficult. lagging behind in another muscle group, okay, maybe we need to reassess. Maybe we need to look at some of these joints or positions and find out why we're not getting progress or where the limiting factor is. So the more feedback, the more opportunity to adjust and help you stay on track, whether it's in your life, your workouts, your job. So I think journaling is something everybody should do. You know, or having that person to talk to, that's also a great way to do it. But, you know, just constant feedback, always evaluating your behaviors and the outcomes of those behaviors.
Feedback. I love it, man. I was reading some of the. You probably have heard of this guy Ray Dalio. He's like one of the best investors, and the
Yeah.
way that he's laid out every meeting in his company, what he calls absolute clarity, that every person's opinion is feedback with everybody else's opinion, and then they write on why they took that opinion, so that you can question yourself if you're being biased or and
Yeah.
just. So you're saying that the best ideas then grow. It's not about a democracy or autocracy. It's more about meritocracy. You know, the best comes out. You know.
Especially with multiple people like that, because we're wrong all the freaking time, you know, like I'll admit it any day of the week. Like stuff that I said was true to my clients 5 years ago, some of that information has been disproven or adjusted since then, you know. And you know, same thing with the flat earth, or the earth being the center of the galaxy, or the solar system. We constantly have to change our presentation based on the information that we get, and that's a big part of being humble and understanding that, you know, like in a group setting, like I'm usually not the one that makes up the best ideas. I'm really good at connecting ideas. I'm really good at using analogies and correlating different fields of information together, as opposed to like being the one that comes up with like the winning strategy. I'm like the glue. When you sit all these smart people down in the room, I can help transfer the information back and forth, or integrate a new idea based off of their idea. But yeah, that's the best way to learn, is just realize that feedback that you're getting constantly is not negative or positive. It's just feedback that you can use as a tool in any way you like to improve the outcome of whatever you're messing with, whether it be your health or your business or whatever.
For sure, man. And once you and then so when you're doing all of this and now you're building your company and everything, and what was one of the conflicts that you experienced? Another learning opportunity, you know, I would say that
Oh,
you experienced.
got the answer to this one, man. It was diversification of workload and tasks in general. For example, in the online industry, you have to have a social media presence, and that's how people find out about you. So that means you have to create a bunch of different platforms. You have to create and distribute content throughout these platforms, stay engaged with the community about the content and whatever questions they have, and then at the same time run your business and work on digital products, and you know, building all these different things, like a website design. I didn't know anything about website design. I was like the caveman anti-computer technology guy. And so learning how to get on the back end of a website and play around with that, learning how to shoot my own videos and edit my own videos. I get asked questions all the time by people like, well, what video editing software stuff do you use, and like, how hard is it? I'm like, trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do this stuff. Like, it just takes time and practice. All I did is go to YouTube and watch instructional tutorial videos on pretty much everything I learned, and then just trial by fire, man. I mean, if you look at some of my first YouTube videos, or my exercise library on my YouTube channel, the first ones aren't as good because I didn't know how to crop and zoom and change the angle and stuff. So it was like so frustrating, but also so beneficial, because as this business grows, as I outsource, I'm gonna need to know how to do these things, so that way I can delegate how I want them done by other people, because they're not going to be able to read my mind. And if they don't create it a certain way that I see it in my mind, I'm going to have to make adjustments. And if I can't, you know, instruct them on how to do that, or be able to do it myself, then I'm not going to create the product I want, or, you know, have as efficient of an outcome. So, learning how to do all those little tasks, even through the business accelerator, that's been some of the most interesting obstacles that I've faced. Because sometimes I'm like, man, if I only had someone following me around with a camera all day long, they could just catch this raw, authentic expression all the time. But I'm just not there yet. And that's totally okay, because if I see it now and get excited about it now, and I see like Gary Vee or Tony Robbins, and they've got a guy following them around with the camera, and they're just catching it raw, like that, and making content. It's funny because I'll sit down and think like, what content should I make? But then anybody asks me a question, anything at all, I'll just blah, 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 blah. I'll go off about it because I'm just pulling it right out of memory, and it's just authentic and flows. So, still working on that, creating good stuff, and finding out how to manage all those little side tasks better, and learn more about digital marketing too. That's really where I'm investing more of my time. Like Russell Brunson, one of my friends actually just bought me his 2 books, the .com Secrets and Expert Secrets. So I'm working my way through Expert Secrets right now. And yeah, that's the biggest thing, man, is just trying to balance all these different tasks, but yet still create videos, still train my online clients, still train in person, still live the monk life, spend enough time at home doing my own thing and cooking all my own food. So luckily I'm a very ritualistic, repetitive person. So I just, have a pretty good set schedule. It keeps it easy to follow all that stuff and spend enough time doing all the different tasks. But yeah, just balancing that schedule.
You're doing it, man. You're doing it. That's great. And what would you say that you've achieved?
Oh man. Well, to me, it's so funny because like I'm a long-term thinker. So it's like a kick in the bucket at the end of the day. When I look at the achievement that I've had so far, it seems so minute compared to where I want to take things. But that's okay. That's all part of it too. The domino effect will exponentially help me increase my output and my circle of influence as I continue to do what I'm already doing. It's just a time game and a patience game at this point. But yeah, the biggest thing for me is trying to ride that balance, especially in the fitness and health and fitness, nutrition as well, field, where you see this all the time. So do I, where especially you go on like social media and it's like, hey, if you do 20 glute bridges a day, you're going to have a 6-pack and a killer butt, and you don't have to work for it at all. And there's so much misinformation going around out there about what works, what doesn't work. And so trying to use digital marketing and social media to increase my circle of influence and my credibility and my social following, while also not taking advantage of some of the tactics that other digital marketers would use. Like, there's so many of them, like scarcity, like buy now or else you'll miss out forever and you're not cool, like, oh, I better buy his product. There's so many people that will capitalize on emotional vulnerabilities. And I think that's so unethical in this field, at least specifically, because people are already exhausted by the time they come to us. They've tried the diets, they're frustrated, they'll do anything that works. And if somebody that's ripped, that's taken steroids, flexes with some supplement in his hand and says, take this and you'll get jacked, people are like, well, I'll try anything, so trying to play on people's emotional vulnerabilities is something that I really try not to do. And I think I've done a really good job with that, just based on the responses I get through my social media, especially on my Facebook. I just pass on good content. Whatever
Yeah.
I think is good, I give, like, this is John Kempf approved. Read this. I read it and I liked it, which means
Yeah.
it's gone through the checklist of verification in my mind, scientifically and anecdotally, whatever it may be. So it allows people to be like, okay, well, and I get my friends all the time. They'll be like, hey, what do you think about this? And I read about it, but I just want to know what you think, because I trust your input, because I have no ego. I have no agenda. Like, take it or leave it. You can use this information if you want. This is just what I know about it and the facts that are currently presented. Do with what you will. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So that's my goal, is to try to not over influence people to make decisions based on what I'm saying, because I could be wrong at the end of the day too. Who knows? You know, we could all be full of crap. So it's just trying to be humble and produce content that will benefit humanity, benefit people's health, and at the same time make me a living. You know, trying to find
Yeah.
that balance.
That's great, man, and clearly it shows, being the number one ebook on weight loss in Amazon. So congratulations about that, man. And
Thanks.
and and if we were going to walk down the street and we met the John, before any of this happened, and the modern day monk John now, how is he different?
Oh man, if you only knew me, brother, what a contrast it is. I was definitely type A, aggressive, meathead. You know, like I lifted heavy weights. I was a captain of the football team. Thought I was hot stuff, and so I had much more ego back then. I always still have had a big heart, and I've always been a loyal leader. So anybody that's willing to join or associate with me, I always come from a place of service. But I had much more of an agenda personally back then to be cool, and I've always been a social butterfly, so I like being in the center of attention and entertaining people in that way. So I was really extreme. I partied really hard in college. I was in a fraternity. I was bro king, like vice president of my frat, and we really raged it up. But I got the poison out, which is a good thing, because now I made the understanding, the correlations to a lot of the things that I don't want to do and how I don't want to be portrayed. And I'm not regretful or shameful of any of the actions that I had in my past, because those made me who I am. And a lot of what I do through my expression is part of my message to show people, like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be cool. Like, doing the stuff that's not cool, I purposely do all the time to show people, like, that's what actually being cool is sticking to your guns, being yourself, and not giving an F what anybody else thinks about it. So the difference would be, I guess, looking at like to where I've come now, I never expected to start my own small business. That's for sure. Like the YouTube page has gotten a lot of growth. I'm almost at 20,000 views, which isn't much, but it's an exercise video library. So I just started vlogging recently, but the exercise videos are just me giving good demonstrations out to people, so they don't need any kind of personal trainer. They can at least get some sort of coaching for free online. And writing the books, I've always loved writing, but I didn't expect to publish books on Amazon. It was just kind of a wild hair that I got, and they turned out great. They're awesome. They're basically a workout program and tutorial instruction. So coming out of high school, like, I didn't think I was going to go to college. I definitely didn't think that I was going to open up an online business, a small business, and just it all makes sense looking backwards. But then it was so funny because I didn't plan for any of this the way it does. Just like we were talking, I didn't expect it to be this awesome, or this rewarding, or this fulfilling. And so he would definitely be a more bro version for sure. He would probably be a little bit more extroverted, but really I've been me the whole time. That's something that I love to instill in people, and why my close friends and my close following trust me and believe in me and follow me so much, is because I'm me 100%. You get raw me every time, all the time. Funny John, serious John. I'm however I need to be to feel the best about myself, but also, again, now I have that other side of me driving me, which is, how am I contributing? How am I serving others? And so that's kind of the contrast. He'd be a bit more of a tool, but still a good guy deep down.
Awesome, man. Awesome. If we were watching a movie about your life and there was a moment in the movie where we were like, oh, wow, or, wow, what would that moment be? I think, or, we have many, but what is one of them that
Yeah. I would guess, I guess there's kind of it's two distinct points that are correlated through the same event. But I started doing yoga in college. My boss approached me and said, hey, as a personal trainer already, he said, hey, do you want to maybe teach some yoga classes? We're thinking about getting a male instructor. And we actually, this was at Washington State University Recreational Center. We started a hot yoga class called Broga, and it was yoga catered to guys. And essentially, we were trying to market to guys like, hey, yoga's good for you. You could use this mobility, stretching, and deep belly breathing and down regulation for a good complement to your high intensity exercise training. And so that's why I started teaching it, because I was like, heck yeah, I get to get paid to do extra mobility work and breath work and, you know, work on my physical fitness. I had just broken my ankle previous to that, so I was going to use it for extra rehab time. I'm like, yeah, that's a win-win. And then about 6 months into teaching yoga, it just, there's so many subtle shifts, man, but the connection of mind and body. And one day I was teaching a class and I just had this like super simple basic realization that I was performing the physical movements, the postures automatically. I wasn't consciously thinking about them. And because they were automatic, I could consciously think about my thoughts. And it became, that's how I really learned how to meditate efficiently, was through body awareness. And, you know, it's a really common practice for meditation is, you know, to sit down and just focus on different areas of your body, you know, awareness meditation. And I didn't know that then, but it was happening in my body to where I just started to feel more connected and associated, and I could get into a very tranquil state without consciously thinking about it, just from doing yoga. And then that, over the few years, I was probably 2012, 2013. And then in 2015, it was December, and I started implementing yoga and meditation as a home practice. I would do it in the morning. I still do some form of movement, soft tissue work, yoga, breathing, meditation, journaling, reflection, gratitude notes, that kind of stuff. That's all in the morning. And really the reason I do that is from the research on neural priming, where if you fire those neurons, you have a higher probability of continuing to fire those neurons, and you'll actually change your brainwave state from a more beta kind of the sympathetic activity of the nervous system, fight or flight activity, thought, conscious living, to more of the alpha brainwave state, where we're in a more tranquil, lucid state, and a little bit of the theta state as well, where we're in that more childlike dream state, lucid state, where we're more creative, we're more relaxed, we're more intuitive. So that that practice in the morning has really adapted and changed my functioning, my behavior, the way I deal with thoughts. Like I don't get very anxious ever, or you know, I'm just more able to deal with my environment through better stress management practices. But anyway, long story short, there was a specific day in time. It was December 6th, 2015. I'll never forget it. It was early in the morning, same normal regular routine.
Hmm.
Diving deeper into my spiritual journey by, you know, meditating longer, meditating deeper, contemplating more, reading spiritual books about Taoism and Buddhism and self-realization in general, and finding out what are all these other smart dudes doing from the history books that kind of got overlooked, that could be a missing ingredient to the success and evolution of humankind. And from diving down that rabbit hole, I came to this monumental moment where I was in my meditative state and I was just breathing and stretching, you know, nothing fancy. Everyone thinks you go like full Zen mode and you're like, you know, levitating, but I was just, you know, in my state. And I remember a very strong energetic presence coming over me, which had happened previously too. It wasn't like a, oh my gosh, the spiritual realm exists. Like I've always been very connected and intuitive, and understanding that there's energetic energies around us, presences and beings and thoughts and vibrations and all that stuff that we just are unable to perceive with our basic senses. So there wasn't an epiphany or a realization of the connectedness. It was a personal experience that all things are connected, and the energy came over me like a blanket almost. My whole started to crawl, like goosebumps, and I just felt like amazingly good and thankful, and just like it was so crazy and hard to explain in a physical sense with words, because it was just so personal and emotional and experiential. But it was just like I was in the room with you know, like a super respectable or admired person, like a king or something. Like I could just feel the energy. And I'm not a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person, but it would be what one I would assume to consider to be God, where there was just this ridiculously strong presence. And it brought me to my knees. I dropped down. I started crying, weeping. I'm super emotionally connected. So when I talk about crying, like all my friends that know me, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's John. He's totally, that's cool." And I'm not ashamed of that at all or afraid to express myself in any way. But I was weeping and just so thankful for that moment. I was just saying, thank you for whatever this is. I don't even know, but it feels really good, and it's transforming me in ways that I can't explain. And I just heard the words, "You passed the test. You passed the test." And you'd have to really see the whole picture from when my spiritual journey started in like 2012, 2013, and all my journaling up until then. But it was like an immediate epiphany of the entire process. Like when people say your life flashes before your eyes, it was just like that. Like I saw my first realizations when I was like thinking about the universe and karma and action and reaction and our involvement and connectedness to the whole process. And it's just like I got it all at once. And the like when in they, I think it's ancient Greek history or mythology, they talk about the golden thread of life. And it was like I touched that thread. Like I could feel the universe, like every single living thing in the universe. And the other example I use is the picture of Michelangelo, the painting where David is laying down, he's reaching up, and then the finger of God or whatever is coming down and touching his finger. It was like that. It was like I had just touched everything. I felt everything at one moment, and it was just undescribable, man. It was a crazy good experience. And looking into it further in spiritual texts, it's not uncommon, and it's part of the merger during your path of self-realization that we are all connected vibrationally and atomically. We're all stardust. We all came from the same thing. We were all here. We're all gonna be here later. There's a cycle and an understanding to the mechanisms that are at play that we don't understand. But even though I can't explain it, I felt it and understand a truth behind it that is more compelling than anything I've ever experienced in my life, and has really instilled in me that passion to seek that more. And in yoga, the Sanskrit word for yoga is yoke or union, and union of mind and body, union of breath and movement, and union of self to all or God or the universe or source. But it's the merger of those understandings, those feelings, those energies. And it really was an experiential moment where I felt all of that at once. And after I heard you passed the test, which was my understanding of you did the right stuff through the last few years, changed your behaviors in ways that have allowed you to reach this culminating point of growth and realization about what you're going to do in the future. The next thing I heard was, now it's real. Now it's live. Now it's game time. Like now the clock is on. Like no more practice, no more preseason, you know, like you got it. I got it. I realize everything is everything. So now it's my job to continue to work on self-mastery myself, but help other people come to that same realization that we are all essentially that same source. We all come from that same universal infinite source of energy.
Awesome, man. The
Yeah,
modern, the modern day monk in action, brother.
for
That's
sure, man.
great, man. That's great. And so, and that's amazing, dude. That's awesome stuff. And so, and what's next? What's next for you, man? For this next year?
Just sharpening the axe, brother. Chipping at the grindstone. I mean, I've got a couple actionable plans, I guess. I want to continue to focus on my YouTube channel. I've seen really good success already. I've got 250 or so exercise video demonstrations on there, and my goal is to have 500. And essentially, I want the biggest exercise library for free on the internet. And I'm either there already or close, and my video quality is really good because I shoot from the front and the side angle. They're 45 seconds or less. I just started adding audio through microphone to the videos, and there's a text description. So my whole goal is to give people a resource that would be almost as effective as if I were there training them in person. They've got a virtual personal trainer essentially to at least give them an understanding and explanation of the movements. And then from there, obviously, if they want online coaching, then the next step would be to sign up for a program as opposed to just picking exercises out of the library. I create fully structured long-term programs for them. And so that's my goal with the YouTube library is to, I'm vlogging as well. So just increase my vlogging content. I've got a wall in my bedroom up here of like 2 6-feet dry erase boards of ideas and videos to make. And so I joke around with my friends. I've got like 2 to 3 years of content that I've already decided that I'm going to make. Now it's just letting those 2 to 3 years play out and let the content be produced as I go. But yeah, the YouTube library, the exercise video library, that channel in general is going to be where I put a lot of my time and effort and make content for people. And then the other big project that I'm about to start, actually, I've got a lot of the framework for it done, is to create a flagship product where it encompasses all things health and fitness and has a lot of educational background to it. So it's going to be essentially a long-term program as opposed to doing month-to-month individualized programs like I do with my clients. This is going to be like a 4-month-long program that is catered to a specific population. So for example, the first one I'm going to make is fat loss. And the second one is going to be a complete program for yoga. People that are just trying to start yoga, they don't have any experience there, new, and they want to learn the poses, they want to learn the philosophy, they want to learn how to meditate and dive down that yoga rabbit hole. And the first one will be the fat loss one. So that's the one I want to do first, just because I've already got a lot of that content already created. But you could imagine it as a 16-week exercise program, 4 different monthly phases that have progressions built throughout. So you're continuing to improve on your skill and your fitness levels. And then a fully detailed meal plan that will also go in conjunction with the exercise programs month to month. And then a section for educational video modules, which will go over all of the holistic health kind of information that I want them to learn so they can apply this stuff long term and create sustainable change instead of some crash diet or crash exercise program where they see results for 4 weeks but then they fall off. This is going to give them some of the information they need to actually apply long-term change. You know, how should I be supplementing? You know, what about water? What about sleep? That's such a big one for people that they don't realize how important it is for the regulation of your entire body. I mean, every system. And so just starting to talk a little bit more in a formal educational context about these different things that aren't necessarily related directly to the exercise program or the nutrition program, but they're vital in giving you the understanding of how to take care of yourself long term. Stress management practices like mindset, meditation, visualizations, affirmations, deep belly breathing, you know, just starting to teach people a little bit more about how to integrate some of these other holistic behavioral practices into their health and fitness regimen. Because that's the problem I see with most of my clients. And that's why my target audience or micro niche is the modern day monk, because I want to find people like me who aren't just interested in getting a 6-pack, who aren't just interested in stopping eating fast food. Those are both great things to do. They're both great milestones, but the overall goal is to improve total body, mind, and spirit health, you know, attack personal development on all levels. So having some sort of flagship program will allow me to showcase that kind of holistic approach without having to work one-on-one with that client. So I can reach more people with the same kind of mindset. If I've got multiple people that want to lose fat and they want to do it in a healthy, holistic way, which is pretty much all of my following, you know, people that want to improve their health the right way, then I've got something that I can give to them that's a little bit more efficient than me just working with clients one-on-one, because I can only work one-on-one with so many people. and have the ability to reach more people with one product, I think that will be a huge stepping stone for me, not only financially, but also from a market sense. More people will be able to actually find out who I am because I can market that one product, and it's going to be jam packed, man. It's going to have everything. You know how I do things, over the top. So I'm going to include all of it in there. And yeah, that's going to be the other big program, big target that I'm working on.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to it, man. Well, this
Yep.
wraps it up, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, and it was an absolute pleasure, and it was awesome, and I learned tons, and the viewers are gonna really enjoy it, packed with value. So thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Andres. I appreciate the opportunity, man. I gotta say, it looks beautiful there too. You got the sun and the trees and the ocean in the backdrop. That's great, man.
It's a
That's awesome.
sunny day, brother.
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity for the interview. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It was great, man. Thank you so much.